Hey, welcome back everybody. It's Sam Varma, and today's a big one. We're talking about the new iPad Air. So the first question is, do we even need to review an iPad? Everybody knows you have to have a laptop, you have to have a mobile phone. So the iPad is just that extra device that lives in between the two for light-duty tasks and the occasional bout of childcare. Now, some of you have ended up here because you know me, and I love you guys. And some of you have ended up here because you've seen my other videos, so you already know I'm a musician. And some of you may have ended up here through a series of awkward life choices. And for those of you who are just casual iPad users, but you think you need to upgrade, the real question for me is, well, what am I going to bring to the table as a reviewer? So what I want to do here today is give a casual user a sense of where we are in 2020 with an iPad. And for the musicians out there, I want you to understand how I use an iPad so that you can understand where I'm coming from when I review it. So it seems like the first thing I have to do is give you an idea of the context here. What does an iPad mean to me as a professional guitarist? Well, it's where all of my music lives. It's where I slow it down to learn it, where I write my charts and collect them all, and then practice playing through them. It's my tuner, my guitar amplifier, and my synthesizers. It's where I set up my microphones and my audio equipment and then record everything. It's where I write my videos, edit my photography, and do my graphic design. It's the remote control and the monitor for my iPhone camera. Whoa. And it's where I edit the video and then upload it. It's where I manage my website, sell equipment that I don't need anymore, and when it's all said and done, it's where I play games to relax. So you can see, I do an awful lot with an iPad. And I'm coming from a 2017 10.5-inch iPad Pro with 64 gigs of storage. Now that's always been fine for most casual use, a bit of audio, bit of this, bit of that. It's always managed and it's never really given me any problems, which is why I love the workflows. So along comes this year, I start my YouTube channel. I'm running into the limits of 64 gigs because video just chews up your storage. And it starts to look like my only choice really is an iPad Pro. But then they announced the new iPad Air, so I decided I was going to wait, and then it turns out that they will offer me about half the value of my iPad Pro in trade-in, so the whole thing became a lot more interesting. So then the next question is simply, what are the benchmarks on the new processor? What does the whole package look like? So what does Air even mean? I think of it like this. The regular iPad is this hatchback. Practical, very useful, but ultimately kind of basic. The iPad Pro is like the Tesla Cybertruck. The latest technology, cutting-edge design, and enough power and flexibility to get any job done. The iPad Air is this car. It's got a fast engine and some of the latest tech, but in a less expensive package. The iPad Air comes in 5 colors. There are 2 choices of storage level, 64 gigabytes or 256 gigabytes, and you can get it with Wi-Fi only or with Wi-Fi and cellular. The interesting twist is that the iPad Air is the least expensive current generation iOS device that you can buy with 256 gigabytes of storage. It also has Apple's latest A14 processor, which is in all of this year's iPhones as well. So it is fast, very fast, as we will soon see. Now, borrowing features from the iPad Pro, you can use the latest Apple Pencil with it, and it'll magnetically attach to the side of the iPad and charge wirelessly while it's there. You can also use the iPad Pro's $300 Magic Keyboard, which gives you a backlit set of keys to type on, a trackpad, a stand to hold up the device, and a port to charge the iPad when it's attached. The other basic features have been updated to the latest standards, as you might expect. The camera, the screen, and the speakers are upgraded from the base iPad, but are not as good as on the iPad Pro. The Wi-Fi and Bluetooth chips are now the latest, fastest version as well. But there have been some bigger changes to the hardware that you need to be aware of if you're coming from an older device. First, there's no home button anymore. It still has a Touch ID fingerprint sensor, but it's on the top power button now. Secondly, the Lightning port, which has been around since 2012, is gone, and we now have a USB-C port. So the cables you've used with your Apple devices until now won't work with this anymore. Sounds like a bad thing, right? Well, not necessarily. Finally, there's no headphone jack anymore. So let's see what came in the box. You have the device, a 20-watt charging brick, USB-C to USB-C cable, 2 stickers, and the paperwork. The new iPad Air is a little bit shorter and a little bit wider than my old iPad Pro. It's almost exactly the same weight at 1 pound, but it is 10% lighter than the current base model iPad. And combined with the flat sides, it's a lot more comfortable to hold for any length of time. And you won't get those exquisite Johnny Ive designed chamfered indentations in your hands. As for the accessories in the box, Lightning is truly dead. You now get USB-C to USB-C on the cable, and you get the new 20-watt power brick with the USB-C outlet on it, which coincidentally is the same one that you need for the new MagSafe adapter for the iPhone 12. Now on the plus side, all the other iPhones will charge a lot quicker off of this brick, if you have the right cable. Now let's see how it all comes together. Right, so the first thing you're going to have to do is set up the new Touch ID sensor. Now the new design is a little more finicky than the old one, but at the end of the day, it's just as fast and reliable as Touch ID always has been. The second thing you're going to have to do is decide how you want to get your old data onto the new device. And fortunately, Apple helpfully walks you through a couple of different methods. The first one is restoring the new iPad from a backup you've made on iCloud, which is fast and easy. The second is a new thing that I haven't seen before called Quick Start. And what it allows you to do is copy all of your old device onto the new one, either over your home Wi-Fi or by plugging them into each other with a cable. Now let's have a look at all the features. This is the new USB-C connector. And just like your old Lightning connector, it doesn't matter which way up you plug it in. Now all the equipment I've reviewed for this channel comes with USB-C, and you're going to be seeing it everywhere you go. Now this is a fundamental change for the iPad, but the thing that's exciting about it is the idea that I can connect normal computer stuff to the iPad now. Hard drives, monitors, flash drives, all my MIDI equipment, and my audio interfaces. But the other thing that's exciting about this, the USB-C port on the new iPad puts out 7.5 watts of power, which means it can charge your iPhone. So now you have a backup battery when you're traveling. Now I know enough about technology to know that these types of changes can have unpredictable knock-on effects. But I figured I've got cables from my other products here, and I'm probably a cable or an adapter away from making everything work. So I figured I'd get a State of the Union, plug everything in, and see what's what. First, I plugged in my Sonoma Wireworks Studio Jack Mini. I love this audio interface because it's super small and it doesn't need extra power to work with an iPhone or an iPad. But if you're recording for longer and you're worried about your battery, you can plug in a power supply and it'll charge the device while you're using it. So the good news was, it still works. But now plugging in a power supply doesn't charge the iPad anymore. Oh well, not entirely surprising, but I'm just glad it still worked. Next, I plugged in my Steinberg UR22C audio interface. Now, with the old iPad, it needed additional power to function because the Lightning connection doesn't supply enough juice. But the new iPad Air does, so that is win. The next thing I ran into was charging the new iPad Air off the old iPad brick. I have a cable that has the right connector, so I plugged it in. But nothing happened. So I'm like, there's something I'm missing here. So I fired off a couple emails to customer support and started digging into USB. And here's what I learned. You have to pay really careful attention to the specifications on the ports and the cables that you're plugging into. You might have heard of USB 2.0, which is the oldest one. And then there's USB 3.0, which is 10 times faster and can deliver twice as much power. And then you get to what the iPad Air has, which is USB 3.1 Gen 2, which is twice as fast and can deliver 10 times the power again. So The good news is that each newer specification is backwards compatible with the old ones. But if you want to get the most out of your connection, you have to make sure that the ports and the connectors and the cable are all the highest possible spec. I also learned that the little piece of plastic inside the port here is color-coded to tell you which version of USB it is. So in this case, for instance, the white one is USB 2.0, and this is your regular lightning cable. Over here, I have a USB 3.0 cable, which is blue. Now, the thing about USB-C is there is no color coding. So you have to know what speed and how much power your cable can deliver to be sure that it works with your accessories. So let's go back through my cable situation. Why didn't the Sonoma Wireworks interface charge the iPad? I was plugging into this iPad adapter, but the cable and the micro USB connectors on the interface are USB 2.0, which can only deliver 2.5 watts, so it was never going to deliver enough power to charge the new iPad. But the data part of the equation still works, because the iPad's USB-C port is backwards compatible with all the older standards. The UR22C, by contrast, requires USB 3.0 power, i.e. 4.5 watts, to function, and once again the iPad's USB-C port is backwards compatible and can deliver that. The lightning cable from the old iPad is USB 2.0, which doesn't deliver enough power. Lastly, let's have a look at why I wasn't able to charge the new iPad with the old iPad brick and the cable that I had, even though it had the right connectors. The 12-watt power brick can output enough power, but I tried to use a USB 3.0 cable, which maxes out at 4.5 watts of power delivery, so that's not enough. So after going through all of that, it seemed to me like the smart move is to get some sort of USB-C hub. Then I thought, well, maybe I can use Apple's Magic Keyboard, plug in the hub to the USB-C port on the side there, and treat the whole thing like a dock on my desk. I can remove the iPad when I want to, and when I come back, I set it back on there and everything's plugged in already. But nothing is ever what it seems with USB-C. So I called Apple and they said, no, the USB-C port on the Magic Keyboard is just to deliver power to the iPad via its smart connector. And it doesn't do any data delivery. So I thought to myself, the best move is to get a USB-C hub that allows for pass-through charging. So I go on Amazon, and it's just a disaster of different manufacturers and fine print on all the images because every port has its own specification. And in the end, it was way too much of a headache. So I went on a couple of review sites, and it seems like the one brand that everyone can agree on is Anker. So I found this handy-dandy Anker Power Expand 8-in-1 that has USB 3.1 Gen 2 ports on all the USB-C, and you can see that they're blue. And then as an added bonus, it's got memory card slots, it's got an Ethernet adapter, so when I ever go into a hotel room again, I'll be able to plug in, and you can plug your power supply in there, and there's an HDMI port if you want to plug in an external monitor. So it's the mega dongle to rule them all, if you will. And if there's any surprises, Anker's customer service is rock solid. So fingers crossed, plugged in the hub, there it is. Plug in a flash drive, and bingo. Plug in my external hard drive, and there it is. Plug in my Shure mic, which I'm using right now with the hub. And booyah! Plug in power, and not charging. Wah, wah. And why not? Well, went back onto Anker's website, and it turns out that this guy needs 15 watts of power to operate. And the iPad brick only provides 20. So there's only 5 watts left over for the iPad. So now you need to go and get another power supply that can deliver at least 45 watts, which is another $50. And then the cable that Apple supplied with the iPad isn't rated for that much power based on what I could find. So you need another cable as well, which is another $30-odd. You see where I'm going with this? But in the end, it does all work, and I'm actually really excited to work with this stuff. If you've watched this far, you probably know if this is going to be worth it to you. But at the end of the day, this is an investment because all of this equipment will work with my laptops down the road. It'll work with the iPad Pro down the road. So it's not for nothing. Now, with all of that said, let's move on to the other features. The swipe-based interaction model was introduced with the iPhone X a couple of years ago. Many of you may be concerned that it's hard to learn, but you really shouldn't worry, you'll get used to it in a couple of days. You can also now just touch the screen to wake it up, and unlocking here is as simple as pressing the power button and leaving your finger on it for an extra second. You swipe up to go home, swipe up and hold for the app switcher, and slide across the bottom to switch between recently used apps. Getting around just feels faster and more intuitive. And I like that all of my devices are now based on the swipe gestures. I can finally let go of the home button muscle memory, but there's actually more. Hidden in the accessibility menus is a virtual home button. Apparently in many countries where it's difficult and or expensive to have an iPhone repaired, people don't even use the home buttons, preferring to use this assistive virtual home button. As for losing the headphone jack, it's really not a big deal to me. I've got AirPods Pro now, and I love not having cables. I love having the noise cancellation and the transparency. It's really an upgrade across the board in terms of my daily listening. And they keep adding features to it, like the spatial audio. So I think I've moved on from the idea that I've lost something from losing the physical headphone jack. Now the thing is, as we've learned from the USB-C discussion, if you're looking to plug in regular headphones, you need to get an adapter. And the truth is that depending on the brand, they are not all created equal. The real question is, where is the audio being converted from digital to analog? Samsung and Google Pixel, they do the conversion on the actual device, but Apple chooses to do the conversion outside of the iPad, which means the dongle itself is doing the conversion. So you might buy a dongle somewhere, but it might not work. And the Apple one is $9. I would say just go ahead and do that. And as an added bonus, the Apple dongle has been shown to be basically audiophile quality, so you're not really losing anything. The other thing is, with a USB-C hub, it might have a headphone jack, but the digital to analog converters on there are likely to be pretty substandard. So if you do buy a USB-C hub, you still want to buy the Apple dongle with that. The thing that really interested me about the new iPad Air was seeing the benchmarks on the A14 processor against the one in my iPad Pro. As it turns out, they both have the same number of cores, but the A14 has a higher clock speed, and both devices have 4 gigs of RAM. As you can see, the iPad Air is the fastest iOS device on the market at the moment in single-core performance, and twice as fast as my iPad Pro. In multi-core performance, it comes in number 5 overall, and just shy of twice as fast again. So the first thing I wanted to do is a quick real-world head-to-head comparison. So I pulled up LumaFusion and set both iPads to export the exact same project. The technical term for this is a massive difference. So the storage is a total game changer. I mean, who doesn't want more room on their device for stuff? But for me, 256 gigs is 4 times as much as I had on the old iPad. And so now I've immediately downloaded all the content packs for GarageBand. I can keep a lot more projects on board. I'm not shuffling files on and off the cloud all the time. It's awesome. I can switch and save stuff to other hard drives, but I can keep a lot of reference material on the iPad. So that makes it a much more creative tool for me because I have access to all the resources I need when I'm trying to make things. That right there would be well worth the money as far as reasons to upgrade. As for the camera, I don't really use it on the iPad, but it is good to have in a pinch. The big difference here is that the iPad Pro camera has optical image stabilization, a flash, and face detection. The iPad Air only has, quote, cinematic stabilization, and lacks the rest, but it can shoot at higher resolution, 4K at 60 frames a second, and 1080p slow-mo at 240 frames a second. Here's some sample footage side by side. So for my purposes, the differences are minimal. And if I need it, I think this will make a great B camera. So the screen. It's been spec'd out to higher standards, so it should look great for photography, but it also gained the capability to display HDR10 and Dolby Vision, which is what all the streaming services are moving towards. So Disney Plus, for instance, will look exactly the way it's supposed to, with high dynamic range. Coming from the iPad Pro, I did lose the feature called ProMotion. In theory, it allows the pencil to track a bit more precisely, and you get some smoother scrolling, but I can't really tell. I suppose that you'll know if it makes a difference to you. I don't know who cares about the speakers, but if that's you, I mic'd them up. You be the judge. I'd say the results are representative of what I heard in the room. As far as battery life, I'm not really sure. It's almost the same size battery as all the other iPads have always had, and it's rated for the same amount of time by Apple. But I have to say, doing what I do, using the Pro apps that I'm using, I'm finding that I'm going through about 20 to 25% of the battery in an hour. So I had to throw it on a charger just now after literally just an hour of filming. Now, on the flip side, it does charge from empty to full in less than 3 hours. So you're not dealing with that curse of, oh, my iPad's dead and I can't use it now for 4 hours. But it seems like something I might have to manage with this iPad. Whereas with the old iPad Pro, I never thought about it. We made it! So actually, when I think about it now in retrospect, having gone through the whole process, it's kind of clear to me that it's really more like this car, but with a big trailer, maybe. It's everything I love about the old iPad, but faster and with more storage. And I can plug in all of my computer equipment and MIDI keyboards and my audio interfaces. And I did, and everything works with no surprises. The only other caveat is that USB-C hub draws 15 watts of power. So if you don't have it plugged into a power supply, it'll murder your iPad's battery in a couple of hours tops. Other than that, USB-C is a pain in the ass. And if I wasn't trying to nail it for this video so I don't look foolish, I would have wasted a ton of time and money on products that I need to return or that didn't work, and customer service and customer support calls, and I probably would have thought this was a bad idea. I mean, imagine trying to explain this to the non-techie people in your life. This is the genius of Apple, is that they take technology standards like this and they turn it into something simple so that you can just walk into the store, get the thing that you need, and it just works. So we've already seen that the transition to this iPad is a bit more expensive, but it's even more expensive than that because the old Apple Pencil that I was using with my old iPad Pro, I can't use it with this one. So I've got to spend another $130 on a new pencil if I want that capability. I've also run into a few bugs. It seems just like the apps are a bit more hesitant and they sometimes don't come back after going into the background when I switch between apps. So I don't know if that's just an optimization thing that might improve with updates, but just FYI. Finally, and this is probably a big point for a lot of you, if it's going to be your main machine, you really do want a keyboard for this because I write all the videos out first, and when I'm typing, the keyboard comes up and takes up half the screen. The other plus is that for a lot of the Pro apps, you can use the keyboard shortcut commands, which would be nice. So there's another $150. So one of the questions I had going into this was, how's it going to compare to my 10.5-inch iPad Pro? And the truth is, it's still an iPad. But now this iPad Air is the real transition point in Apple's product line between an iPad and an actual computer. It's almost as if Apple is saying, if you want a faster iPad, here you go. But if you want something that's a light-duty computer, you can turn it into that. So for me, it's a real step up. It's faster, more storage, and I can connect to all my external devices. And it's really a testament to the capabilities of the iPad that I've basically been able to do everything I need to for the last 3 years without a real computer. I much prefer having a computing platform that's modular, that has the pieces that I need when I need them, but that I can just have an iPad when I want to have an iPad. There's no viruses, there's no drivers, there's no random incompatibility problems that waste my time when I'm trying to create things. And a computer for me is always something that's just a layer that I have to get through to get what I need done. The iPad is so much more direct. A lot of the professional software that we are used to is already here. You've got Microsoft Office, all the Google services, and all of Adobe's Photoshop and Creative apps. And just from the guitar world, you've got Bias Effects 2, which you can have on your computer. You've got Cubasis 3, which has the same audio engine as the full version, and plugins like FabFilter's Pro Q. They're all the same fundamentally under the hood as their desktop counterparts, and in the case of Bias Effects, you can already just buy one license and then use the app on your computer or on your mobile device. So my argument, which is that everybody has an outdated idea of what you can do with an iPad, I think it's vindicated here. I spent $500 on my old iPad Pro on a Black Friday deal, and with the trade-in value they gave me, I'm going to spend roughly the same for the new iPad. And yes, I have to invest a bit into the ecosystem, but I'm getting something much more flexible in return. I can get everything I need done on an iPad, and I think you can too. So thanks for watching. I hope that was really informative for you guys. And if anyone wants to reach out, please comment. You can also find me on Twitter. That's where I'm the most active. And subscribe and all that stuff. And I look forward to seeing you here again. Take care.